In this video, what I'm doing, this is 18-ounce canvas cotton duck. And you would normally use this for upholstery, boat cushions, things like that. What I'm using it for, this is one of my dog's retrieval dummies. And no matter how I patch this end, he goes for this end and tends to rip it apart. So I bought 18-ounce canvas, which I believe is even heavier than what they made this out of. And I'm hoping that's the case, because if he can chew through 18-ounce canvas, he can basically chew through anything. But what I'm going to do is cover this. I haven't decided yet whether or not to remove the grommet, but I'll do that when I'm hemming it. And to do this, I'm just going to make a bag or a tube that's going to fit around this. And mainly, the issue when you're doing a project like this is to mark where you need to sew. So I'll be trimming a seam off here. I'm going to mark it with a pin. And you need a heavy-duty machine. So I had said that I probably need my 1588. I'm going to try this with the 1891 white treadle simply because the torque of a treadle sometimes makes things easier. So this is basically the tube I have to make. I'm going to do one seam right where that pin is. Come right down like that, leave about a half an inch seam, and then close off one end. Throw the dummy in there, and then figure out how to close the top of it. So let's see if the white will stitch through 18-ounce cotton duck. This is one of the reasons why it's so convenient to have a treadle machine. All of my machines have storage bags, and because I switch them around, and having one treadle set up, all you have to do is treadle. You don't have to worry about getting the machine out or anything. Now it's a little noisy, which means it's hitting the bobbin case. I do have equal weight thread in both the top and in the bottom. So I'm going to have to look at that anyway, but as you can see, this machine sews through that like it's butter. It's white thread, but there's the seam, without an issue at all. So let me check that bobbin case, and then come back and sew the bottom. Okay, it does not seem to be actually hitting the bobbin. I did put a little oil in there, which is something you want to oil your machine regularly anyway. And the other thing it could be is that I need to put a new needle in. That the needle is just slightly bent, and that I would need to put a new needle in. But those are regular maintenance properties of any sewing machine. So let's go ahead. I want to make sure that the stitching is tight, because as he throws that around, I don't want to have to be patching it. So you can see, for a machine from 1891, the stitching is perfect. but I may go over it again on the bottom and maybe even over here and just make it 2 rows of stitching to prevent from hand sewing through this would be difficult if I needed to patch it. And I did buy quite a bit of fabric, but the longer I can make this last, the better. Okay, so I've gone ahead, I double stitched it. I have a canvas bag. Let's see if we can zoom out just a bit. Now this is the way they make them. Scout's a large dog. This is a large. It's about 13 inches long overall and 3.5 inches in diameter here. I think what I'm going to do is cut this whole grommet off. What I don't want him to do is grab the new cover and hit a tooth on that without being able to see it and get tooth damage. Now they do make these in a small. Let me just fix the camera, sorry about that. They do also make them in a small if you have a smaller dog. I use these to teach the dog basically bring, which with him leads to bring, drop, sit. But this is why you need to either cover them or throw them out. They float, and basically were made for like Labrador retrievers and stuff. But inside here are all little like fake sand that is just now starting to come out everywhere. So he has gotten to the point where he's puncturing that. So it either has to be covered or thrown away because a patch isn't going to be good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this whole grommet end off and then very simply stitch the end, you know, with just top stitching and let the end of it fray. Okay, so here's something I didn't know about these. It's not fake sand, it's real sand. And it's a styrofoam tube. I cut the grommet part off. A styrofoam tube with a plug. And the plug has come loose and the sand is coming out. I'm going to put that all back in there. I'm going to put the plug back in. Now I wonder, the styrofoam I understand would make it float. I don't know what the sand does in there. There's about 3/4 full. And there I've got the plug back in. It's real sand, not fake sand. So now let's just stick this in the bag, and it's going to be tight. Now these training dummies are about between $10 and $15 a piece. The fabric was $13.99 for a yard, but the yard is 60 inches wide. Now that I know how they make those inside there, now I know what they stuff them with. I couldn't figure out what they stuff them with. And if it's styrofoam, well, gee, I can figure that out too. I can save pieces of styrofoam or something. So there it is, in the tube. Now, he absolutely loves this. Now, this is 2 layers with just 1 seam allowance. I don't know if I'll run into a problem going over that seam allowance. And I don't think it has to be up tight completely to the styrofoam there. I basically just want a bag that floats. So I may run into I don't really have a very heavy duty thread in here. And that's right where the seam allowance is. So I might just move past that a little bit and then go back over it. Because I don't want the thread to break. But now, even if I had to hand sew this part of it, isn't that moving? No, I think I ran out of a bobbin thread. No, maybe not. I know that's in the way of the camera, but I just want to... No, I ran out, the bobbin thread didn't pick up. So this is what you can, this is kind of why I said I need the 1588. Because these, it went through with a seam, sewing a seam very easily. But when you have bulk, the stitch length going through this and the angle and all of this, sometimes the stitches don't catch. So you get the idea. I'll rethread this. I may finish it with another machine. But there is a fairly easy way to recycle these floating training dummies, and it's been instrumental in teaching Scout bring, drop, sit. I don't know if any of you caught that. I had Singer on my mind because I was going to use the Singer. I had the needle threaded, going in the wrong direction. And this is the beauty of the old machines. It did like 1.5 inches worth of stitching with the needle threaded backwards. So let's see, but the stitch length, when you have this much bulk, the stitch length can prevent a complete stitch, which is what I thought was happening. And let me just see. And this is now sewing fine. Let me just back the camera up for a minute. Isn't that funny? You can see, you know, it never fails. Right here, it went from there to there. It stitched it with the needle threaded wrong, but there's the stitching with the needle threaded correctly. And now he has a bag. I'll go over that again, so that he doesn't like rip that out in 5 seconds. I might even cut this as if it's fringe and give him something to chew on instead of that grommet piece. And this is now sturdy and good to go as far as he carries this with him everywhere. He plays golf with it. He keeps one end in his mouth and he hits a tennis ball with it. It's really it's also a stick to train place. It's worth recovering it instead of throwing it away. And I apologize for threading my needle backwards.